Okay, welcome Esther. Welcome Esther Davidsen. Welcome to Senior Boulevard TV. After so many weeks going back and forth about preparing this content for this interview, I'm so excited to have you here on the platform, especially a person like you, because if I understand correctly, and the way that we know each other is obviously by visiting international conferences. So you have this particular angle, international angle to your expertise. So that means that if a person like myself would ask you questions about the Danish market, you can immediately put that in perspective in an international context, which obviously creates so much more value to it. So I'm really looking forward for this chat, Esther. So in order to kick off this expo on the spot, may I ask perhaps to start introducing yourself, and then we can
Yes, thank you very much, Alexander. Yes, so I work on health innovation in Denmark, and I have a long experience from abroad where I have worked on European projects and on the implementation and the roll-up and the scale-up of this whole market for the elderly. So I've really specialized in that for a long time from the Danish perspective and from the international perspective. So I'm really happy to be here on this platform. Hope I can be helpful.
I'm sure you will be, Esther. So Esther, in terms, especially with taking into account the international context, how could you provide us a little overview on how the Danish senior care system looks like, putting things a little bit in perspective? With that, could you help us?
Yeah, so Denmark is a welfare state, so it has the same type of system as in Sweden and in Norway, where all elderly care, it's all mainly publicly driven still. It's developing towards many more private actors, but we have a national level, a regional level, and a municipal level. So the national level makes the strategies, and the regional level manages the hospitals and the GPs, and the municipal level manages all the home care. So the municipal level is actually responsible for providing elderly care, also providing housing, and also providing assistive technologies and all sorts of care. And so there's a whole, and then we have 98 municipalities, and they all have their own policies. They can actually levy taxes. So they have their own budgets and their own strategies and their own ways of running elderly care. But they are, of course, there are standards and national requirements, and I'm very happy to go through that.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so basically there are different types of housing, of nursing homes, and we have sort of from the full service nursing homes when you're really not capable of handling your own basic life, and then different steps up to living on your own, of course, and having access to services in case you need it. So there are all these different types of housing. And the service care homes is something that is provided by the municipalities, and you have to apply and go through this whole procedure. And then there's also a sort of a user payment that is quite low compared to what you get. But there's a whole new market developing now for privately offering these services. And
how is that today? How did you see the evolution so far, and how do you see that moving forward, evolving in Denmark?
Yeah, so there's been a trend over the last 8 to 10 years of keeping people in their own homes and providing service to people's homes, and that gives us a lot of people who receive a lot of visits every day, but by different people running in and out, even to get up to almost go to the bathroom. So you have all these home care workers, municipal care workers, or private care workers circulating and then providing visits for meals, for going to bed, and of course also for a weekly bath perhaps, and that gives us a big population of people who are very lonely because they cannot go out by themselves. Basically, they're so and everybody is scared of being in that situation, and therefore we have this private market developing where you can move in while you're still capable and then become part of the community, and these services are available as you grow into it. So basically, of course, there are some quality requirements, and you have to, there are certifications that you need to comply with, but that's all quite accessible. Anybody can run a care home. Anybody can apply for the certification, but of course you have to obtain it. So both for care, for food, and then eventually for training. There are different quality standards certificates that you need to obtain.
And also for the segment in the middle, like also for the assisted living, if I can put it that way, market as well, that there is also a quality standards being set up or forward on local, regional, or even national level that are.
Well, for that's the thing. Once you require care, or once you want to have access to the sort of public financing or being a provider, then you have to comply with these requirements. But as a private provider, if you want to build a building and set up technologies or paid care, then you can of course do that. But the subsidies are available because there's this thing that the municipality, they have budgets, and everybody has a right. So it's, I don't know, I haven't made that calculation, but it's better to have the certification and then the money that comes with the people than set up totally private on your own.
Interesting. And what today are the tendencies that you see? My question is more related to how are people aware of what their future needs, because that's sometimes difficult, because sometimes you don't know what solutions you want to go for if it doesn't exist. So you have this chicken and the egg problem, and especially also toward to new innovation models, but also the integration of technology. How do you see that trend going in Denmark?
Well, the public sector and the government has a very strong technology pushing strategy. So they have made a new strategy. So the overall objective is, as long as possible in your own home, anything digital support and assisted living as much as possible. So prevention, early detection, rehabilitation. So there's even a text for nursing homes of the future. They put that we must support social life, but also we must fill them. We will fill them with sensors and technologies. We will put pressure sensitive floors, lighting. We will put in flush dry toilets, electronic information boards. We will fill them, because this is the public nursing homes. And I think that the economic calculation is always present. It's cheaper to have installed a flush and dry toilet than to have a person available to go and help the person to go to the bathroom. So there's always this weighing for and against.
Do you think there's still a gap of people that are familiar with these type of solutions, or the adoption towards these new technologies, or do you think that there is still quite a road to go? I mean,
so I think that the elderly homes, that is perhaps the easy part, because then the user is usually just in need of help, and therefore they are happy to receive any help that the staff gives them. The adoption of the technology in the private homes is much slower, because then it's a personal decision what you want to purchase and what sort of services. And there's also the carers that goes to the homes. They need to know about these technologies. So the adoption of technologies in the private homes is it's much more difficult,
It's much more, okay.
slower.
And is the government taking steps towards that to create awareness about all these new styles of living and technology solutions, services? Is that something that that is really being supported in Denmark?
Well, it's being supported by this, elderly care strategy, which is full of, technology and robots and assisted initiatives, and they're showcasing them. Also, and so that they push it in that sense. But there's the scaling up of these technologies in the private homes, where the municipalities have the responsibility for the care. Is slower, and it depends also on the municipality and on the kind of citizens they have. In some areas of some cities, the public might be next to a technological university and have only retirees from that area, and then it's easier. So it also depends a lot on the population. So the government is pushing it, but the municipalities are pushing it, but they always, the calculation of when is the investment, when is an investment worth it, and when is it not, is very difficult. The business case is really difficult to set up.
No, absolutely. And that brings me actually to my next question. In most countries, or most areas, you always see this debate going on. Technology is fine, we see the added value, but then it comes the questions of who pays for it. And are there any perspectives that we can learn from Denmark in that sense, that you think, or do you think no, that perhaps other countries are more advanced with regard to that?
Well, the private market is slowly developing. So for us and for the elderly generation at the moment, they think that they have paid taxes their whole life, so they should get this care for free. But of course, then they will only get whatever the municipality provides, and that is not necessarily the nicest looking or the smartest. So the private market is definitely developing slowly but surely. And then I think that another trend that is important is about, and that just coming back to the issue we talked about before, that people want to prepare themselves for living in this elderly community living settings, and there are waiting lists for that. So I saw some statistics saying that there's for every one unit or every one apartment space in these elderly communities, there are 34 people on waiting lists. Wow. So there's really a big desire or demand to go and live in such a kind of protected community setting, rather than being on your own in an apartment or in a house somewhere and rely on people coming in from the care organization. So the trend, the fashion is, we want to prepare our aging by already start living in a place like that when we retire, or but there's a demand.
That's a huge demand, what you're just referring to. Is there any particular reason why that is, or why that? Because demographically, unless I'm wrong, and I've read through your slides, you see Denmark being at more or less the same type of a demographic aging challenge than most of the European countries. So why do you think that would be such a?
I think it's because there are more elderly and stronger elderly. So when you retire, you still have resources, you still have your brains, and you want to prepare. So it's not, when you retire, you're no longer finished and ready to die. So there's basically a larger population with more resources, and they want to, and then they can also see that the public sector does not continue to have the same level of resources as the population increases, the population of elderly increases. So more elderly and fewer resources, and that gives a big gap. And therefore people are taking responsibility themselves and say, okay, how can I make sure that I don't end up in a situation where I sit alone in my apartment, I cannot move, and I get 8 visits from different people every day per day to feed me and put me on the toilet.
Mhm. Would also be and I'm just challenged there, is that perhaps the Danish people are more open to innovation, new models and technology than perhaps other countries. Do you perceive Danish, you've been traveling around, more receptive to these type of things? Of course, when the government starts to send out that message as well, it helps. Or do you say, no, that's perhaps...
Well, I think that we have all the public services are online. So there's no banks and taxes, and everything has been online for 10, 15 years. Of course, we still have, I think it's 20% of the elderly or of the population that are not using the online services, that they still go to the citizen service physically. But there's a lot of online also. So the elderly are also online. So grandparents and my parents in 87, they're active on Facebook, and they're communicating in Messenger also amongst themselves. They really they don't call each other because they cannot hear. So there's all this writing. They're very good at using I think they and managing, because they've been trained already over a period of time. So in that sense, they are not some of them at least are not afraid. Some of them are afraid and do not want anything in electronic and sort of are still anything new. But I also think that there is this population that is elderly population that has been online for a long time.
Yeah, I see. If you would take a step back and just look at things, and especially with your international experience as well, Esther, what would be the core elements that you would take away as a lesson from what Denmark is doing, is organizing? It can be anything that we could take away as a lesson, perhaps towards other countries, or are there any particularities that you would select?
Well, I think it's always good to showcase the innovation and to share the experiences, and it's also a difficult task. But the municipalities here are competing a little bit to, I've done this and I've done that, and who has got the most fancy tech home, and how do you bridge to the care schools. And so it's always important, I think, to get the information, to get the knowledge circulating about the innovations that you're testing and how it works. That inspires others, and that is what opens, I think, our organizations to try new things.
Okay, so it's really this knowledge sharing willingness, and at the same time with this competition going on different municipalities, that you think are makes Denmark an interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think that is what we try to do, what everybody tries to do, and what we also basically try to do now with this channel, and to show what's happening elsewhere, and where people have moved, because we are all, of course, moving in our own little bubble, to be national or even regional. So it's really nice to understand that somewhere else, like in the north of Sweden, they have cameras over the beds of the elderly, because there's so many people living very remote. They can be hundreds of kilometers away from the care center. So they have put cameras over people's beds, and of course in the beginning that was a big issue, and then now it's normal, because then you can avoid accident, you can intervene, because you cannot, the distances are so large, they cannot just pop by. So there are things happening in other places where you think, well, that would never be accepted, but actually other places it works. So robots the same, and so I think it's always nice to hear that other people have different mindsets and work in a different way.
Yeah, and also perhaps on a final, this is exactly what Guiden 65 does, if I understand correctly. This is exactly what your organization is trying to bridge, correct?
Yeah, so we are we are putting the user really in the center. Putting the user in the center, the patient in the center, is the key policy of the Danish health strategies and health politics. So in Guiden 65, we've done that with the segment of people who are living at home and who need some kind of assistance and who perhaps still do not qualify or not bad enough to qualify for heavy assistance from the municipalities. And as the municipalities pull back also, and they only intervene when it's really bad, then there is a space where you need to manage yourself, perhaps with the help of your relatives or your family. And that is why we have made this platform Guiden 65, where we showcase technologies that are on the market already, and so to help people choose for themselves. And we've made this rating system also, like Trustpilot thing, where you can see, read what other people have experienced with this type of help as assisted living. It could be a technology, but it could also be a physical thing or a service. So we really try to bring the help, the assistance to the private market, to the private choice, to the citizen and the environment of the citizen, so people can have their feelings also. They don't feel that they are not capable of doing anything anymore, and they don't feel that they are sort of obliged or surrounded by strange technologies that they don't understand. So they actually participate in the decision.
And perhaps as to conclude, is that with that background, with that knowledge, if you would say, what are still the challenges out there, the most important ones, to make this type of adoptions, and perhaps broader than just pure a device or a technology, to move this opportunity forward? What are challenges that we still think we need to take into account, in your opinion?
I think we really need to take into account the feelings of the people. So it is all about both in housing and in how you want to envisage getting older, or what sort of technologies you are ready or not ready to. It's all about what the feelings of the people. So if we can understand and talk and communicate in a way where people feel that they are seen and they are met, then everything becomes much easier, because then the scale up and the new things are less dangerous also, perhaps, or can become less dangerous. So it's really talking into what people feel and what they like and what they think. Listening to that is I think very important.
Any particular thoughts in that regard, with regard to family and friends in this regard?
Yeah, well, I think the family and friends, the caring environment are of course part of the caring environment. In Denmark, we have a little bit outsourced the care for our parents and our elderly to the public sector, because women have worked full time since the 70s, and so anything care became a public responsibility. But of course, this is also the relatives are sort of being pulled back into becoming a family again, because the public sector cannot afford to provide the level of services that they have done so far.
So particular focus towards them, having them being part of the solution, and is an important aspect as well.
Yeah, and the platform we've done is also addressed to the relatives, because we know that they are a little bit sort of unsure how to participate, because they can see this communication going on between the care organization and the elderly, and they are not part of that conversation. With Guiden, we invite them into the conversation, and it's a help to have a dialogue with your relative or your elderly parent about how can we make your daily life easier and better.
Yeah. No, Esther, this was so. I've learned so many things from this chat. I hope our audience will. I'm actually quite convinced that they will think the same thing. Thank you so much for your time and your input towards this, and I look forward to seeing you on a perhaps potential future chat.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Very welcome. Bye bye, Esther. Have a great day. Bye bye.